finally, I just want to ask you, you've already mentioned before and other talks that you've done and things that you've written, you've spoken about this hope, you've spoken about this is the generation that has the tools to tackle these issues. So I'd like to ask you, to end this off is, what are your hopes for what this field of perinatal or maternal mental health will look like in the future? And any last key messages that you have to those that have watched the series?
Yeah, I do have enormous optimism for the future in this area of human evolution, human development. I think because we now have this knowledge of how important both to adults and to children, and to the children who in the future to their adulthood, we have an understanding of the critical importance of this time, and we're increasingly understanding what are the important features of this time. And it's really not that complicated. What all the science is telling us pretty clearly now is that our mental well-being as nurturing primary caregivers, as parents of very young children and of fetuses, is critically important, and that interacts with the wider environment. So if we are living in a stressful environment at the time when we are becoming parents or being parents of very young children, that impacts on our mental well-being. But it's through that impact on our mental well-being that wider environment impacts on our children. And we know that for some children, most children are absolutely fine, but for some children, and slightly more children, that leads to ongoing difficulties into their adult life. And what we've seen is that this goes from one generation to the next. So the disadvantage that you experience as a very young child, adverse experiences, parental mental illness, has an impact on you as an adult, and you can pass that impact on to your children so that they can have difficulties. And we now know that can jump. So we've seen now effects from grandparents' early childhood adversity leading to effects in their grandchildren's development. And the science is telling us that this happens, and that this has happened throughout the history of humanity. So we are all impacted by that. But it's not only telling us that, it's telling us that we can do things to change what could be a downward spiral into an upward spiral, where things get better and better generation after generation. And that is by impacting on that environment and on the mental well-being of primary caregivers, of mothers, at that critical, very early stage in life. Then we can change this cycle from a negative one to a positive one. And that offers an opportunity for humanity, which I think is just extraordinary when we think of the numbers of people who've been affected across history by this cycle. So I'm hugely optimistic. This is one of the greatest breakthroughs in our understanding of human health and well-being that there's been, certainly in my lifetime, and I think for even very much longer than that. But of course, we need to act. We can't just assume that the knowledge is going to change things. And it's an action that's going to take a long time to show a huge effect. And so the sooner we start, the better. So let's get going. Let's nurture parents. Let's support them as societies. And let's change the world for the better.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think this has just been an incredibly, optimistic conversation, and I hope that everyone else can kind of take a little bit from it. But really, this message of nurturing the nurturers is something that's so important, and it feels like this conversation is a call to action. And so we at MMM, we are so appreciative of your time and for you coming to chat to us. And yeah, we look forward to working with you again in the future.
Well, I'm so appreciative of the work that you do as an organization, and may it spread across the world rapidly.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.